Good evening and welcome to this meeting of full council. I'm Councillor Tony Vickers, Chairman of West Berkshire Council. The meeting is being live streamed via YouTube, so members of the public are able to follow proceedings. Council members are present in the council chamber for this meeting. Any members of council who are in attendance remotely will be entitled to speak and ask questions when invited to do so by myself. The officers in attendance are the Chief Executive, Joseph Holmes, the Executive Director of Resources, Sarah Clark, the Executive Director for Adult Social Care, Paul Coe, the Executive Director for Children and Family Services, Anne-Marie Dodds, and the Executive Director for Place, Claire Lawrence. Nicola Thomas, the Deputy Monitoring Officer, will be the legal advisor to me at the meeting. I'm assisted by Darius Zarazel, the clerk to the meeting, and by Thomas Radbourne, who will be the Zoom host. Welcome to Honorary Aldermen in attendance. I see only one of you at the moment. Before we start this evening's meeting, I would like to take the opportunity to remind members that we are subject to the Council's Code of Conduct, which requires us to uphold certain standards, including, importantly, respect. Members across the chamber may not always agree with one another, but I would ask that in our disagreements, we endeavour to always be respectful of others' views. I would also like to ask that members of the public attending this meeting do not interrupt or speak outside of your designated speaking slots. Also, please refrain from approaching councillors unless you're invited to do so. During the meeting, when a motion has been proposed and seconded, I will ask the Deputy Monitoring Officer to conduct the vote by a show of hands. Moving to agenda item 1, apologies. Deputy Monitoring Officer, who have we got or not got?
Thank you, Chairman. We have received apologies from councillors Jeremy Cotton, Jane Langford, Beaky Loco, Paul Dick, Owen Jeffrey, Eric Pattenden, Laura Coyle, Martha Vickers and Dominic Berwick. We've also received apologies from Honorary Aldermen Hilary Cole, Graham Bridgman, Rick Jones, Alan Law, Anthony Stansfield, Molly Locke, Graham Pask and Keith Chopping. Are there any apologies from the floor?
Right, item 2, Chairman's remarks. The Vice Chairman and I have attended 24 events since the annual council meeting on the 15th of May. And I'll just pick out a few of them and say how they seem to all hang together around a theme of warfare, its fallout and peacemaking. You may recall I said when you appointed me that my theme for the year would be have faith in our future. And I explained how it links to the council's motto, forward together. Our future will be lived mainly by our young people. So really my theme is have faith in our young people, but their future must look pretty bleak to them much of the time, given the state of the world. So almost my first engagement since we last met was the D-Day remembrance for those who died for king and country on that great venture which led to victory in Europe. It was appropriately held at Greenham Common, where there are now monuments to the Americans who died at the airbase during the war. Now, such events are largely about the past and those who did not survive to enjoy the fruits of victory, the far-sighted peacemaking that happened, in fact, after the World War, the Second World War. So we then went to Sandhurst a few days later for the annual Armed Forces briefing on our reserves and cadets. I was commissioned into the Royal Engineers there myself in 1975. Several of us from the council attended, myself as chair, the vice chair in her capacity as Armed Forces champion, and the emergency planning manager, Caroline Richardson, in her volunteer capacity as a reservist army major. We heard how the government plans a defence resilience bill, which calls for a whole society approach to national defence. Now, Caroline, I believe, plans to brief us on what that means for this council and our citizens here at or before the next full council. We were also told that we now live in the most uncertain geopolitical environment since World War I, before World War I, in fact, and that modern warfare, as it's experienced now, as I speak in the Ukraine, has meant that Russian meat grinder has in just 3.5 years of warfare made casualties of numbers of men equivalent to 3 of their armies. Just leave you to think about that. I spoke briefly about this a few days later at the Armed Forces Week flag raising ceremony outside this building, which was very well attended, I may say, by officers and members. And the Vice Chairman may wish to say more about that week. 2 events I went to at short notice because the organisers weren't aware what a chairman of council can do, helping with celebrating what their organisations are doing. All the other unitary authorities have mayors. They don't know what a chairman is. One of these was a play at the Corn Exchange written and performed by former refugees from warfare, largely. And it was graced by Newbury Mayor, because the organiser from Reading thought that the chairman of this council equated to the leader. So I'm not the leader. I don't want to be the leader. I'll stick with this job. The play was about the journey, the actual journey from war-torn Syria to Germany, in this case, helped by her able-bodied sister. No civic leader had actually been invited, and I didn't attend as chairman, but I do think it's the sort of event that deserves to be celebrated. 2 very different refugee to citizen stories come from the 2 citizenship ceremonies I've had the pleasure of attending at Shaw House. In June, it was a young Nepalese couple with a son in one of our secondary schools, and the father working in the security industry. Both here because Gurkha veterans were given the right of abode when the British Army had to vacate their base in Hong Kong in 1995. This month, it was an American lady who lived happily with her British husband in the US until recently, but they both now feel unsafe in that country. And becoming a British citizen is a big step for an American because they don't accept dual citizenship. A highlight for me personally, of course, was as a former military survey officer attending the 200th anniversary parade of the forming of 3 survey squadrons of the Royal Engineers, one of which I commanded. Quite rightly, it was the Newbury Mayor who took the salute and inspected the troops because the core of Royal Engineers was exercising freedom of the town. So it wasn't really a district event. My wife, Martha, in fact, granted Royal Engineers freedom of the town when she was mayor in 1997. I wrote about this in last week's Newbury Weekly News, reflecting on my own 20 years with no shot fired in anger at me, and at the very different experience that our armed forces have been having since the collapse of the Soviet Union, and sadly must expect in the foreseeable future. And this brings me to announce finally 2 events that I'm co-sponsoring in the coming month. Next Saturday, I will be leading a walk, something I do quite a lot, but this is unusually. One of those that was asked for at the behest of the late Pope Francis. Just before he died earlier this year, he said that this should be a year of Jubilee, which is an ancient Israelite tradition, actually, relating to cancelling debts and reallocating land. But Pope Francis called on all Catholics to be pilgrims of hope, to rediscover hope and to share it with the world in the face of current challenges. Well, in that spirit and with the collaboration of the Mayor of Reading, we will walk from the east end of Holybrook Linear Park, just inside our district, to the centre of Reading, to the St James's Catholic Church. That's about 4 miles. Do please spread the word among your local communities. All are welcome, but I do need to know who's coming as the walk leader, health and safety and all that. Then in my Newbury Weekly newsletter, I announced an event in VJ 80 Week on Monday, the 11th August at the Newbury British Legion Club, which will be about what happens after victory. I'm inviting people with family connections to the war in the Far East, like myself, to share their personal experiences about growing up and living in those post-war years, affected in various ways by the terrible things that happened to their loved ones, whether they died in that cruel theatre or, like my father, survived. And I conceived of this idea at a similar event when I was vice chairman earlier this year. It was about reconciliation after the Good Friday Agreement between the Brighton bomber and the daughter of the MP who died in that bombing. There I met a retired Japanese government minister who is now involved in international conflict resolution. And that's why I thought an event in VJ Week involving that very same retired Japanese minister. And in fact, my own son, who is a professor of conflict resolution in Japan, and a local chairman who I will be announcing more about next week. But wars like these must eventually end, like the Second World War. And we must think of those who are fighting now in Palestine and Ukraine, not just for us, but for their own people. Now, I will ask the Vice Chair to say a few sentences, if she wishes, about the event she's attended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I went to 3 events on your behalf. I'd just like to mention one. I had the pleasure of officially opening the Northcroft Leisure Centre, and we were given a tour of the most wonderful building. I recommend all members take the opportunity to go and see it. It really is a credit. And there were thousands of people there. I am told over the day, more than 2,000 people took part in what was on offer. I did realise they weren't all there to see me because there was a gladiator called Nitro and he drew the crowds. Thank you.
She won't say what happened then.
But now you've said, I have to say now. I did go up to him and said, now we've been introduced, may I feel your muscles? And I can assure you his arm muscles are just like rocks.
Moving to agenda item 3, the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes on the agenda and we'll vote on them separately. I propose that from the chair that the minutes of the annual council meeting held on the 15th May 2025 be signed as a correct record. Can I ask for a seconder? Councillor Brooks, thank you. Are there any amendments to the minutes from the floor? Any issues? Could I have a show of hands, all in those in favour? Any against? If not, thank you. Those are carried. I now propose that the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 10th June 2025 be signed as a correct record. Again, can I ask for a seconder? I'll take Councillor Drummond this time. Thank you. Any amendments from the floor? I should be asking you for a show of hands, shouldn't I?
Thank you. Can I have a show of hands for all those in favour? Any against? And any abstentions? Thank you. I can't confirm.
Did I see an
Councillor Culver.
Culver? Okay. Right.
Abstain.
Unfortunately, it was the first meeting in 6 years that I missed, which was very traumatic to me. So, yeah, thanks, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Culver. So the next item is declarations of interest. Deputy Monitoring Officer, have there been any?
We have received one declaration from the floor from Councillor Janine Lewis, which is noted and I'll put on our records. Thank you. Are there any other declarations from the floor?
I see none. So we will move on to agenda item 5, petitions. May I ask if there are any petitions to be presented to council? I believe there are. Councillor Armitage.
Thank you, Chairman. I will request residents to present the application.
I would invite whoever has the petition to present, and then either that person or Councillor Armitage can summarise, or between the two of you, just to explain what's behind it. Thank you.
Good evening, all. My name is Gary Cheeseborough. Thank you for allowing me to be at your meeting tonight. I'm representing the residents of Grove Road. We've recently had a petition, which I've got here, which have got about 230 signatures, and it's still rising. Basically, we want the council to consider some sort of speed measures for Grove Road. People not familiar with Grove Road, it's a very straight road on the edge of Newbury near Donington Grove Golf Course. There's no many roundabouts, there's no crossing, the pavement's very narrow in places, there's no speed camera, there's no measures at all to remind motorists to keep down to the speed limit of 30 mile an hour. There's schools nearby like Robert Sandilands, there's the Castle School, there's Trinity around the corner. During rush hour, in the morning and the evening, a lot of people speed, not everybody speeds, but there are some very high speeds from some cars. And unfortunately, there's no deterrent at all for people not to speed. And in addition to that, when the M4 or the A34 is closed, it's often used as a cut through for traffic that comes off the other roads. And again, people that aren't local or aren't familiar with the road often do tend to speed. People living along the road find it very hard to get in and out of their drives. And with the narrow pavement, we have real concerns about safety. Luckily, so far, there hasn't been any fatalities. One of the residents had a parked car that was crashed into by somebody that was going too fast last year. But to say, it's a real problem. People that have got cats, quite a few of them, the cats have been run over because, you know, the car's been going too fast. And we just would like the council to consider if there's something that could be done to try and help address the issue of speeding. There has been, I think, there's been previous.
Got 1 minute, Mr.
Oh,
Cheeseburger.
sorry.
That's right.
There has been a previous survey. We have done speed readings before. It didn't reach the criteria for a camera. We don't necessarily need a camera. We just need some changes to the road just to try and help address the speeding at times. And also, I'll just point out one last thing. We do get some very large agricultural or Arctic vehicles that use the road as well, which when they go past, if they're speeding, it's very dangerous on the pavements. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cheeseburger. Would you wish to add anything, Councillor Armstrong?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just quickly add and first commend the residents for this petition. Just quickly add, Councillor Martha Vickers as ward councillors are fully supporting this petition, as so as the Speen Parish Council. Just to add on this one, regarding the funding, if at all it comes to that situation for any measures, Speen Parish Council, which I'm part of as well, has indicated that we would be able to look into our share of the SIL money from the recent developments and contribute towards it. And I request the officers to look into this petition to come up with a permanent measure, because we've been working with police officers for our enforcement, but unfortunately they can't do much of an enforcement. So we want to have some of a permanent measure for this road. And thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmed. I believe the petition, if you would come forward with it, would be dealt with by the executive member for highways, but monitoring officer will take it off you. Thank you very much. And there's another petition I see from Councillor Carter's ward. Are you going to present it, or have you someone here to do that?
I was going to present it. Do I do it from here? Yes, can you hear me? I'm presenting it on behalf of Wakefield Parish Council. They would have been here, but they didn't realise we could get it done tonight. So I'm speaking on their behalf. I'll read it exactly as they've written it. It's Graiseley Green, accident black spot. The proposal is to ask for a reduction in the speed limit from 50 to 40 on the Reading Road between the approach to New Road coming from Tadley as far as the bends outside the Bell Public House. Over the years, there have been many accidents within Graiseley Green area. On the crossroads of Goring, Good Boys and Palmer's Lane, there were regular accidents. On the junction of James Lane, there's been several accidents. Even New Road itself has seen its fair share of incidents. There have been deaths and hospitalisations in this area, which drives another request for a reduction in the speed limit. 12 years ago, the local residents raised a petition, which was signed by every member of the community living within the area for a reduction in the speed limit. This was rejected by the local authority as the reduced speed limit could not be policed. Given the fact that the current 50 mile an hour limit is not policed, this seems a hollow argument. There is no way to prove that a reduction of the speed limit to 40 miles an hour would reduce the number of deaths and hospitalisations, but given that most drivers are law-abiding, would reduce the risk posed to not only those who live here, but also to other road users as they pass through the area, as the natural speed of most of the traffic would be reduced. It's been signed by 29 residents, which is over 90% of the people who live near there. that's it. I can then make my
Fine,
comment.
thank you, councillor Carter. That summarises things nicely.
Can I just add my own comment just over and
Just
above, which is
briefly,
just to say that, for example, on the 9th of April, there was a motorcycle and car accident, and this has gone on for over 20 years as a request. My recommendation is that we do expedite the change of the speed limit for the reasons the petition signatories have given along the sections that they state, so from 50 to 40.
Thank you very much, councillor Carter. Officers will review the petition and confirm within 10 days what action will be taken, and that applies to both petitions.
Shall I hand it over? And I've actually got a second one, if you wouldn't mind. Is that okay? This counts as a separate clock start, doesn't it?
Would do. Yes, I mean, I think that's fair. I
Is
just
that
had
right?
it down as two petitions for the whole, in total, but maybe there
Oh,
was
so,
confusion.
well, okay. So the second one is Stratfield Mortimer, the street, which is outside the junior school, or half of the junior school, St Mary's Junior School. We've got 350 people signed an online survey saying, should the speed limit be reduced from 30 to 20 around the area of St Mary's Junior School? Of those, 48% said yes, 21% said no, 12% said they weren't sure, and 11% thought there should be other measures taken. So the overwhelming majority of 350 respondents said do it. They also then said, the majority of those, 60% of those said, when should the 20-mile-an-hour limit apply? During school drop-off and pick-up.
Thank you, councillor Carr. It sounds like more of a resident survey on an issue than a petition, but we will hand that in and leave officers to look at it and get back to you.
Yes,
Thank you
okay,
very
fine. Did you want this other one handed over? Because
do please hand them over to officers. Yes, come up to Mrs. Clark.
thank you.
We now move to public questions, of which there are many, and I wish to thank members of the public that have submitted them. The maximum number of time, however, that we have allowed in our constitution for answering all questions submitted is 30 minutes. If we run out of time, any questions that are yet to be answered will receive a response following the meeting. The questions will appear on the screen shortly and will be answered by the relevant portfolio holder. And questioners will be given the opportunity to ask a supplementary question. And this should be only to clarify the response you've received and must not introduce new business. And given there are so many questions, I'm going to be quite strict on that. Thank you. Yes, could people come forward to the lectern to ask their questions? Obviously, if they're here, otherwise they can be asked remotely, virtually. All right. Okay, who's the first? Question A on the screen there. Mr. Garvey, are you here virtually?
I am.
Okay. Do you want to say the prescribed words?
Well,
All right, we'll go straight on with the answers.
I can see the question. Mr. Garvey, good evening. I hope you're. Your question says this council often falls short in answering questions by being vague, lacking in detail, or avoiding the question altogether. I do not agree with you. I do not agree with you at all. That is your perception. That is your words. That is now out in the public domain. And I'm saying quite clearly, I disagree with that. We do everything we can to be as open and answer the questions as we are asked. Some of the questions are very complex, and therefore the answer starts to become complex. It doesn't mean we are trying in some way to avoid answering it. Now, you talk about that questions must be submitted 10 clear working days. Let me get that right, please. Questions that do not relate to an item of business on the agenda for a meeting in question must be submitted 7 clear working days before a meeting, not 10. Questions relating to an item of business on the meeting agenda must be submitted no later than 2 clear working days before the meeting. Only 2 days. This does enable officers to review and prepare responses to questions, but it also enables the portfolio holder to investigate and not just simply parrot out the answer that the officer provides. And I'm not doing that now. And I don't tend to do that. The words from the officers tend to guide me and help me on the issue. Now, if individuals consider they need to clarify any response provided, they have the ability to ask a supplementary question. At times, this is done in writing after the meeting, and these responses are published to ensure transparency and a commitment to openness in our process. So I don't recognise your allegation that we often fall short by being vague, lacking in detail, avoiding the question altogether. And Mr. Garvey, you know, if you provide examples to me, my door is open to you, my phone line is open to you. I have answered you in the past on a Saturday evening when I'm preparing for a barbecue. So, you know, I am here to ask, and in the next week, I will introduce the Ask the Leader sessions, precisely to draw questions, and thank you for yours on that, to be able to answer questions to the public. Do you have a supplementary?
It sounds as though there is no supplementary coming. Shall we
That's
move on?
not, hold on, I don't know why I was muted. I apologise. I did unmute
Do
it.
carry on.
Before I ask my supplementary, this is the first public meeting or the first council meeting since you've been chair. I just wanted to congratulate you on being elected as chair. You've always been very respectful to me over the years, Councillor Vickers. So I hope you have a very successful year. Councillor Brooks, thank you for your question, for your answer. I do appreciate that yourself, Councillor Gooley, and certain other members of the council do respond to questions personally. But I do feel, and it's not just my opinion, but it's shared by some elected members and members of the public, that sometimes the answers we do get to questions aren't really answering the questions that have been raised.
Is there a supplementary coming, Mr. Garvey?
There is. Can I just give you 2 examples of questions that I feel weren't answered, or do
You can't. Just give me a question relating to the answer that you have received to tabled question.
All right. Well, can the leader of the council implement a new policy of asking for prepared answers to be submitted to him and the chief executive a couple of days before the meeting so that they can ensure the questions actually provide the information requested? Thank you.
Well, firstly, I don't agree that any portfolio holder, you picked out 2 who you seem to think are okay. I think we all try and answer questions very well. The process you're trying to implement happens already. And finally, you are not, and I think the chairman is right not to allow you to point out 2 examples, but if you want to send me those examples through the email, information is important. If they're of use and value, then we'll see what lessons might be learned. Thank you.
I call on the portfolio holder for community engagement, economic development and regeneration, development and local government reorganisation to answer this question tabled on the screen.
Mr. Allen, thank you for your question. The answer is no. The initial public engagement exercise that we undertook has only just finished for the proposed Ridgeway Council. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, supplementary would be that in Thiel, I've been told, Chief Executive Holmes said there wouldn't be a capital and it would be divided up among South Oxfordshire, Vale of Whitehorse and West Berkshire. So I wondered whether that was true or which option was being used.
Thank you very much for your supplementary, Mr. Allen. I think we need to remind ourselves of where we are at the moment. It's far too early to be having conversations like this. So alluding back to my original answer, we've literally just finished the initial soft consultation, gone out to the public to find out what they think about this proposal. there's a huge amount of work still to do between now and November, both internally here and at Vale in South Oxford, in terms of pulling that information together, internal governance processes, putting it before our members and giving them the opportunity to have a say before the government then decide what's going to happen. So I don't want to speculate on what's been said and what hasn't been said. I just think at the moment it's probably too early to be having those kind of conversations.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
Question C is for Councillor Brooks to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Pearce. You talk about the work was on this Sports Hub Task and Finish group, that the work was completed and the report in the first week of February, but it's not been progressed to the executive. That was a version of the report. The scrutiny members, some scrutiny members, and myself clarified with the chairman of that scrutiny commission, as it was then, that further witnesses ought to be interviewed. And I'm grateful to the chairman of scrutiny and now scrutiny of resources in place that she agreed to do that. Those extra interviews have taken place. So I'm saying that the process has been somewhat delayed for very, very good reasons. Because if that report had carried on, you could easily have said, well, the certain right people were not interviewed in order to give it absolute clarity. So it's not concluded, but only this week. Councillor Culver and I sat down and we talked about a number of things, including the pathway for this report to be concluded. And the work is ongoing. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you for your answer. It has been going on some time, and I can see it going on further. Would it be more applicable for the current CEO to deal with this rather than the Scrutiny Commission? The reason I say that, if the former CEO and the monitoring officer knowingly allowed the public to be misled on this, they actually would be acting with criminal intent.
I need you to withdraw that remark.
Which would...
You were claiming something that you've not provided any adjustment.
No, I was very careful with my wording.
Just move on to the question. I think you actually asked a question, but then you moved on to some
Yes.
explanatory notes. So
the question is, would the current CEO deal with this now rather than the Scrutiny Commission?
No, no. And I don't think anybody knowingly misled anybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Pearce. Question D from Mr. Kirby, Councillor Pemberton to answer.
Yes, Mr. Kirby, thank you for your question. Good evening. I've got quite a long list here. I'm going to have to ask you to bear with me.
I'm happy if you just want to pop that online. If that's because I'm not going to have a follow-up, there's going to be too much detail there. Do you mind if I just get in with the supplementary and ask, does that all sum up to £1 million?
So the figures that have been given to me by the officers add up to a grand total of £999,000. So £999,991. And all of these numbers have been ratified by MHCLG without any...
Okay, that's good. I think that's fine. If you could make those available online so that I can scrutinise.
Happy to.
Very grateful to you for saving us time. Question E from Paula Sanderson. I believe she's online to be answered by Councillor Stewart Gourley.
Good evening, Mr.
There, Paula. There, Dol.
Good evening, Ms. Saunderson, and thank you very much for the question. The local transport plan is the overarching policy document which the council will adopt, hopefully this evening, to provide the way forward towards 2040. Local transport plans are a statutory requirement, but although they look forward 15 years to allow for long-term planning, they're normally refreshed every 5 years. With each refresh, changes are made to support other policy areas, for example, changes in planning and environment, and delivery items in the action list can all be always be amended or added to as funding streams become available. Officers have already undertaken modelling work, for example, on mitigation measures on the A4 at Flora Way and junctions east, where these may see increased traffic as well as changes in the modes of travel as North East Fatcham is potentially built out. Budget has already been set aside for survey work to refresh the transport models themselves, which were previously updated in 2017-2018, and this work will commence in September, October this year. Do you have a supplementary question?
You are muted, Paula.
I'm getting the nod that you're not muted.
I have unmuted about 6 times, right. No, I won't have a supplementary question because I will raise it to the leaders' questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Saunderson. Next question is from Richard Garvey again to Councillor Brooks.
Thank you. For clarity, housing benefit overpayments occur when claimants receive more support than they're entitled to, often due to delayed reporting of changes in circumstances. Legislation governs the recovery process, requiring prompt notification of appeal rights. Now, you refer, Mr. Garvey, to the correction of the CIL payment issue. I'm not going to go back over that now. But that drew my attention because a number of members of the public came to me, one in particular, Mrs. Dobson, and said this is wrong. And I'm saying to you now, if members of the public believe they've been chased for payments, overpayments, that they don't believe they should be chased for, they know where I am. Not through you, Mr. Garvey. They know where I am. In the same way, Mrs. Dobson came directly to me. That is the route if they want me to put a lens on individual cases. What I will confirm is that we will not try to recover any overpayments as a result of software issues. Thank you. Do you have a supplementary?
No, but I appreciate the answer, and I'll pass that information on to those people who had commented on Facebook in relation to the story about the larger software
Thank you,
issue.
Mr. Garvey. Can we move on to the next question? Nice. It's great to receive praise, but we're on the timescale here. Next question from Mr. Allen to Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Allen, for your question. You know that the council is facing a serious financial crisis at the moment, and we're constantly considering how to become more efficient and to use our funds more effectively. We know that the resource centres support some of the most vulnerable residents in our community, among others, as you point out. Our research shows that other organisations, other than the council, for a host of reasons, are able to deliver services more efficiently often than we can through those in-house services. So we really need to explore what other options are available to us at the moment. We've tried to be very clear on this, that the work won't proceed, so no alternatives will be considered unless alternative services can provide equally good care to the people receiving care, our customers. And we are keeping in touch with care staff who work at the resource centres to keep them up to date with what is happening. We value their hard work and we know that they provide excellent care. There are also many people using independent daycare services. Those people are happy, safe and well cared for. And the staff at these independent centres do an excellent job as well. So we are still in the process of deciding how we will proceed on this matter. But if we decide to close any or all of the resource centres, undecided, we will of course work with the affected staff and those who use the centres. We know that there is high demand for care staff and this is a sector with no shortage of opportunity. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, if closures are the route that is chosen, councillor, then do you fully grasp the damage that will be done to the lives of the workers, the residents and their families that use these daycare centres?
I've tried to be very clear here, and I really need to emphasise this a lot. We know that these resource centres provide an important service to the people who receive it. We will continue to talk to people. We don't want to proceed with this unless we can provide an equivalent service.
Thank you.
Next question is Mr. Kirby again to Councillor Brooks.
Evening, Mr. Kirby. Responsibility for managing town centre steering groups has been devolved to town councils. Newbury Town Council now convenes and oversees their meeting, with the most recent called in December. The council continues to work in close partnership with the members of the town centre steering group on various initiatives, including the delivery of the Wharf project, the pedestrianisation scheme, the promotion of major town centre events and other emerging developments impacting the town centre. And it's worth reminding ourselves yet again, reminding people again, that the pedestrianisation trial was something that was proposed and put forward in the master plan, the town centre master plan. A working group within the council has been formed to look at delivery of further projects within Newbury Town Centre, aligned with that master plan. Those projects are subject to development of funding, viable funding, and business cases that they make sense. But to answer your question straightforwardly, they are still in existence. Do you have a supplement?
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. So the steering group still in existence, and it's fully devolved to the town council. I'd found minutes or meeting notes for one meeting. It might have been 2023, but that's all I could find. That was on the West Berks website. So the West Berks website won't have any meeting minutes for this group, and I need to look on the town council's website for it.
I'd like you to look on the town council website, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to check why we couldn't at least draw attention to that it's met and do a link through to where the minutes might be found.
Yeah, that would be super. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Next question is from Ms Saunderson again to Stuart Gurley. This is question I.
Yes, thank you again for the question, Ms Saunderson. The local transport plan is a strategic document. The council reviews its road networks regularly, reviewing accident and speed data to identify if improvements are needed in roads, and we do this in consultation with Thames Valley Police as necessary. If any new developments are brought forward which may have an impact on a nearby road, those impacts are assessed and mitigation sought through the planning process. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, I think in terms of parish councils understanding your transport plans, you've got a 1 year, a 3 year, and this one, which has got a bit of an action plan on it. So would it be possible to have those all on one page on the website so that they're all in one place and you can go and see what's happening for the year, 3 years, and then this longer term plan?
Yes, if you're referring to things like the network management plan, footway improvement plan, highways improvement plan, and then the LPT, then yes, they will already be on the website, but probably as individual decisions. So yes, there is. I'll take.
They could come onto a transport page.
Yeah, I'll take.
It'd be easier to go through that and pick out for your area what's happening on the short term, medium, and long term.
Yeah, happy to take that away and have a look to see if that's possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now have Ms Garvey. Question J to Stuart Gurley, Councillor Gurley.
Good evening, Mr Garvey, and thank you for the question. As yet, the council has not received any petitions in relation to the proposed changes to the residual waste collections. Should we receive a petition, it will be considered and progress in accordance with the council's consultation. However, at this point in time, we plan to continue with the changes in service in line with the improved waste management strategy with regards to black bin residual waste collections. And you may have started to see the bin hangers and communications highlighting that these changes are coming. and that they will come into effect from the 22nd of September 2025. And further communications and new collection calendars will be sent to residents from the end of August. Do you have a supplementary question at all?
I'm assuming that's a no.
Oh, somebody keeps on turning off the microphone for some
Okay,
reason.
carry on then, Mr. Garvey. Sorry about that.
Thanks for the answer, Councillor Gourley. I know we've gone back and forward on this. The official Facebook page of the council has said that the criteria for a larger bin and the determination process can't be published because residents may abuse the system. I know we've gone back and forward on this.
This doesn't apply to the
It does
answer.
apply. It does apply. I'm asking the question now, Councillor Vickers. Thank you. Can we please have those criteria published on the website? You know, surely if somebody qualifies, they qualify. Thank you.
I don't think that does relate to the answer that I gave you or the original question. However, what I will say is we have a robust process and I have shared what neighbouring authorities do and what our process is. And I would urge residents to reach out to their local ward members and I would ask them to follow the processes that we have communicated via our website and that we will be communicated through written literature in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garvey. Mrs. Saunderson, this is your last question, I think. Question K to Councillor Brooks.
Ms. Saunderson, the monitoring officer's annual report is being considered by council tonight. The purpose of this report to report on standards and conduct within West Berkshire Council. It's not been possible for governance committee to consider this report at full meeting due to scheduling limitations. It would be usual for the governance committee to consider this report, but all members of the executive have been apprised of the contents ahead of council consideration. The annual governance statement is being considered by the governance committee on the 29th of July. This considers the council business is conducted in accordance with the law and proper standards, and the public money is safeguarded, properly accounted for, and used economically, efficiently, and effectively. This will be considered by the council in autumn. The forward plan of governance committee is publicly available and details the work to be considered. Now, the Constitution Review Task Group is an internal meeting held in private and continues to meet regularly to discuss areas of the Constitution that are yet to be formally updated. Some of it is very dry, some of it is checking that the Constitution is fit for purpose. And when the work on a particular area is completed, this progresses through our governance process and is available for the public to consider at that stage. Part 12 is up to date at the present time, and it is within the monitoring officer's delegated powers to make minor amendments to the Constitution, such as this section, to ensure it remains relevant. It might, have we got a parrot or a budgerigara tonight or something? It might be that a critical member of staff's job title has changed. So it's and the Constitution has to be changed to refer to the right title of the officer. Small, I say cosmetic, important, but, you know, not exactly high urgency or high impact. The monitoring officer is only obliged to prepare a report in the event that there may be a contravention of law, maladministration or injustice by the authority. Reports that are considered by the Executive or Council are considered by the monitoring officer prior to publication to ensure our high standards are upheld. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes. It probably didn't come over, but the thrust of it is this is a function which is really important to the council, and the report only covers the conduct of councillors when that function performs very many other tasks and has to be manned accordingly and given the right budget. And I find this with some of the other functions that when they do reports, the financial side of it and their resourcing side of it doesn't seem to be covered anywhere. So if you've got somebody who's running a function, an annual report is normally an opportunity to express whether you're fully manned, got the right budgets, etc. And I don't know where that happens for this very important function. So is there any way you could explain or look into it, please?
I think it's more look into it.
Yeah.
We do have 1,500 staff here, and providing detail, dynamic detail of the structures, people who are not, vacant posts. It's a moving feast every day, but we will take a look into it, Mrs. Saunderson. That's all I can promise you. A look
Well,
in.
you've also promised to, in a way, look at this in my letter to you.
Thank you. We can carry on correspondence outside of this meeting. Thank you, Mrs.
Thank
Saunderson.
you.
Now we have question L from Mr. Garvey. This is likely to be the last one, by the way. We've got 3 minutes left.
Good evening, Mr. Garvey. Thank you for your question. I'm afraid it's going to be quite a short answer because for any information, any correspondence between officers and members, you'll need to submit a freedom of information request through the appropriate council channels. The council will respond in line with the freedom of information regulations. Do you have a supplementary?
Thank you for your answer. No, that's great. I'll submit an FOI request. Thank you.
Well, we can move straight on to your next question, Mr. Garvey. Question M to Councillor Foot.
If you don't mind, Chairman, I'd like to take this, please.
Councillor Brooks, you may do so. Yes.
Thank you very much. And I will clarify, because there's been one or two little bumps in the road tonight. Members of the public are muted if they're not in the chamber. One of the reasons it's hard to actually manage the meeting, and I know this from executive, if a member of the public continues to speak when you're trying to answer the question. It's hard in the chamber, but online, we do mute people so that they can't cut across, and then we lose the flow of the answer. But, Mr. Garvey, I'm going to do a copy of Councillor Gaines now. Thank you for your question. If you'd like to submit an FOI request, we will disclose the documentation in line with the FOI rules and timescales. Do you have a supplementary?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
That ends the time available, I believe. Is that right? Oh, you got 1 minute, Mr. Garvey. If Councillor Gaines wants to answer that one.
Happy to, Chair. Thank you again for your question, Mr. Garvey. The question is referencing the planning application 23/01/507/FUL. It's important to note that this application was decided by delegated powers. What that means is that planning officers decide the application without reference to members. The application was for a proposed solar array to serve various properties at Westrop Farm. The panels were located within the corners of an agricultural field to the east of the Westrop Farm, with one of the existing buildings known as a granary being used to house the necessary inverters and batteries, with cables being laid underground. No objections were raised by the statutory consultees or the the parish council concerning or any local residents. The scheme is policy compliant and there is a limited impact on the character and appearance of the area or residential amenity, which is why it was decided by officers. For details of the correspondence, again, it's recommended to submit a freedom of information request through the appropriate council channels. However, the council does not hold any correspondence with the MP Lee Dillon in his capacity as a local member of Parliament. Do you have a supplementary? Do you have time?
I do. Obviously, any correspondence asked for was for when he was leader of the council, not for when he's MP. I seem to recall an application being denied for a garden shed because of how it might impact the appearance for people walking in the field nearby. I just find it a little bit
I
odd.
don't believe this is in relation to your.
Well, I haven't asked my question, have I? So don't worry about it. I'll submit an FOI. Thank you.
All right,
Mr. Garvey, just while you're on there, as Councillor Brooks has said, we're always open to you actually emailing us or contacting us if you have questions. Or coming in person, in fact. Thank you.
Now we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 7, membership of committees. Councillor, well, we've received the following proposals. I can read these out. Councillor Hobbs, Catherine Hobbs, she's not a councillor. I missed that by-election if she was. Be appointed to represent the Roman Catholic Church as a co-opted member of the Children and Young People Scrutiny Committee, one of the new scrutiny committees. That Tony Wilson be appointed to represent the Church of England as a co-opted member of the Children and Young People Scrutiny Committee. And that Councillor Alan McCrow and Councillor Martin Colston swap positions on the Children and Young People Scrutiny Committee so that Councillor McCrow becomes the full member and Councillor Colston becomes the substitute member. Could I therefore have a proposal to move that motion? Councillor Brooks, thank you. Can I ask for a seconder? Councillor Gaines, are there any amendments to that? Could the Deputy Monitoring Officer conduct a vote by show of hands?
Thank you. Can I have a show of hands of all those in favour of the motion? Any against? And any abstentions? Thank you. I can confirm that's been carried.
Item 8 is motions from previous meetings. There's nothing to report from previous meetings to update the progress on them, as I understand. So item 9, updates from committees. You've got that on your agenda and it says that the meetings that took place as laid out in that agenda item. You just have to note that. Item 10 now, we're moving on to a more substantial item, the local transport plan. And may I invite Councillor Stuart Gourley as portfolio holder to formally move the recommendation contained within the report.
Formally move, Chair.
Can I ask for a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair. Thank you. Chair, I reserve my right as well.
Saves me asking. Thank you. Now invite Councillor Gourley to introduce the report.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The local transport plan before you this evening, members, strikes a balance between ambition and pragmatism. It reinforces that strong local transport and local infrastructure cuts across all strands of the council strategy. And it also recognises and reinforces the importance of health in all our policies, with its strong themes around improving access and infrastructure with regards to active travel measured across all of West Berkshire and cleaner air. Within the local transport plan, it focuses around 4 visions: places for people, sustainable access for all, decarbonising transport and supporting sustainable growth. And alongside this, it is structured in a place-based approach: villages and rural areas, Eastern area and Newbury and Fatcham. This place-based approach reflects the different needs, challenges and nuances that each of these place groups have. The development of this local transport plan has had regular consultation with 2 public consultations and engagement with local transport operators, parish and town councils and also neighbouring authorities. And there's been regular cross-party engagement through the Transport Advisory Group. And whilst we do have different opinions on some aspects of the plan, on the whole, I believe there's been broad agreement. I suppose turning as well now with regards to some of the context that has influenced this plan and where we find ourselves. Traffic volumes across the district now remain at a lower level than before the pandemic, and where digital access has reduced travel for retail and services. We're in a world now where the number of people who work from home has increased and fewer younger people are learning to drive. And we're also facing a climate and ecological emergency, which is continuing us to require us to rethink how we do things, and a continued cost of living crisis, meaning people reconsidering how they travel. So with that in mind, turning to what's actually in the plan and some of the highlights, there's certain ones that I would certainly like to pick out. I'm surprised you'll be surprised to hear. This plan has a renewed focus on investment and maintenance on our highways network, looking at introducing a rural priority network and recognising that many across our district count these as main roads. Not all residents will ever touch an A road across West Berkshire, and we need to ensure that our rural network of main roads has a priority applied to them that reflects that. The focus on a better maintained network continues to build on the changes that this Liberal Democrat administration made, such as reducing the depth of a pothole, filling more potholes and filling them sooner, doubling the number of resurfacing programmes this year, and also tripling the white lining budget. There's also a strong focus on safety. Vision Zero is really critical in this plan and making sure we look after people on our roads and educating and empowering them. And this means a focus on those educational road safety campaigns and a rollout of 20-mile-an-hour areas across West Berkshire, 14 of which planned this year. It also looks at expanding our demand responsive transport and building on the super successful Downlands and Fatcham Connect services by expanding that into the rural east. It also looks at continuing to explore funding options and feasibility options for a bridge over the Fatcham level crossing and working with stakeholders on that feasibility and funding. You may have seen in the news recently that it's also looking to potentially trial an e-scooter scheme, and that seems to have caught the imagination of West Berkshire residents for one reason or another. And I just want to be really clear that this would look to support the offering of this cost-effective travel type for residents. And as a trial scheme, it would be there with all of the management that a scheme brings, an organised scheme brings, and the legislation that comes with. And that's very different to the illegal use of privately owned scooters that most people associate with this type of travel. However, the truth is on this that the UK legislation is far behind where it needs to be to support the proper introduction of this zero carbon, accessible and cost effective mode of transport. And the national government really must do much more to catch up with emerging tech and transport types. This plan also aims to reduce through traffic across the A339 corridor with specific focus on freight and HGVs. And also a focus on expanding our rural electric vehicle charge points and infrastructure and building on the great work that's already been done across our many areas across West Berkshire. And finally, it also continues to focus on that rollout of our successful school streets schemes and supporting that cleaner air and safer routes around our transports. In summary, however, this is an excellent local transport plan that sets out that high-level direction of transport and travel for West Berkshire for the next 15 years. It is a living document and things will change in line with emerging national policy and local requirements. It's ambitious yet pragmatic and recognises the blend of transport modes that are required in a district with very rural areas, but also very urban areas, and with local and strategic networks such as our roads and our rail. And it also reflects our societal shifts and demographic changes, and recognises that we need to do things differently in a planned and structured manner, but ensuring we leave no one behind. And finally, I'm happy to bring this plan here this evening, and thanks to all those involved in bringing it together, officers and members, towns and parish councils and stakeholders that have inputted into this plan, and I do hope it finds support across the chamber.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gourley. And I now open the debate to the floor.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Gourley, for presenting the paper. I think overall it's a positive move to bring this plan forward, and I recognise that from the years of work that have gone on with it, and I thank officers for their continued work on it. There was a considerable amount that went on whilst I was portfolio holder, and it's good to see that it's been positively carried forward from there. I do have reservations, as I'm sure you would expect me to be saying. 20-mile-an-hour speed limits need to be carefully monitored and carefully consulted on. I don't think they're appropriate in all locations, and I'm sure the residents will be mixed in their feelings about their own areas. Same will go for e-scooters. We see plenty of posts on social media at the moment from Thames Valley Police confiscating them, being illegally used. It's a fine line, and the management between the two of those that should be and those that shouldn't be will be difficult. Safer access to school streets. Calcutt was one of the leaders on that, and I'm really pleased with the way that's gone. So good to see that continuing forward. And the sustainable access overall, I think, is a really positive and beneficial move. Page 85 sets alarm bells ringing for me. Parts of the eastern area fall within the Reading City region. Now, I work in Reading, I live on its border. Number one, it ain't a city. Number two, and I'll look at you, leader, and again, thank you for your comments made on the radio this week. To assume that the people that live in the eastern area want to be part of it is foolhardy at best. I, for one, and I don't think I'm alone, do not want to be part of Reading and their failing systems and processes. Thank you very much. Overall, as I said, I believe this plan to be balanced and to be supported, and those elements I don't like, I will keep a very good eye on, as I'm sure you would expect me to do. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Somner. I'm going to be meeting the Mayor of Reading in just over a week's time, so I hope we're still friends. Yes, Councillor Marsh.
You Chair. As a member of the late lamented Transport Advisory Group, I'm well aware of the excellent work been done by officers on this, and one officer in particular, Mr. Gore, who I think is the main author of this report, and I commend the work that's been done. And also I'd like to commend Councillor Gawley, who I know cares about this subject as his predecessor did, and always responds promptly when I raise issues about transport in the area, and also is prepared, and this isn't true of everyone, to put his head above the parapet on social media and face some of the criticisms, often unfair and misguided and misinformed on these sorts of issues. And there are some really good things in the report, and I support the overall approach, including the increase in active travel journeys in Newbury and Thatcham from 35% to 50%, decarbonising transport, 20 miles per hour speed limits where residents want it, which, with all due respect to Councillor Sumner, I think is most residents in most places, and other measures. I do have a couple of points I want to make, which I'd like you to consider. One about mobility for disabled people, and one about road safety. As it happens on the mobility issue, on the accessibility issue, which you mentioned twice in the introduction to this document, a really good report was produced this week called Transforming Mobility by a group called Transport for All, which includes disabled members of Sustrans and the Motability Foundation. And it put forward 5 big ideas that could transform disabled people's mobility. And also they'd be good for everyone else too. So, for example, one of these suggestions is to increase the number of side road zebra crossings. They don't need all the flashing lights and everything that you have on main roads, but when they trialled these increased number of side road zebra crossings in Greater Manchester, they led to a 65% increase in drivers giving way to pedestrians, particularly helpful to disabled pedestrians, but for the rest of us too. And I think it would be really good to look at this, because the bar seems very high in West Berkshire to get crossings. Another proposal which is mentioned in the report is about mobility hubs that would make it easier for people to walk, wheel or cycle. We're stuck with a position where the station, unfortunately, is not near the bus station, and that's something that I'd like to hear what plan you have to address. The other thing I would say about safety is we heard from people earlier from 2 different areas about concerns about speeding. The process by which this is dealt with is very slow, ironically. And, you know, it's a 3-week consultation period, but it takes years to get speed limits introduced. And we have to find a way to be more dynamic about that, to go to a road and say, we can see that Grove Road in Speed needs something doing to it, not wait, not force the residents to spend years campaigning to try and get something done about it. So I really hope that we can tackle that and be bolder in not just, yes, school streets is great, but be bolder outside schools and where residents have raised concerns in proactively sorting out the safety problem, not waiting for somebody to get injured or killed and then deal with it. By the time it's too late. Thank you very much, Chair.
I've got Councillor Carter next.
Oh, yes, thank you very much. Sorry about this. I'm just going to make a point. It came up yesterday when I was at a parish council meeting in Wakefield. So actually, that's twice it's going to get a mention tonight. It's got a nice hotel there. It's in Burford and Mortimer Patch, about 250 houses there. Their concern is on the verges. Don't really want to make a political point, but I didn't know till yesterday that some years ago we cut one of the tractors, as in got rid of it. There was a consultation on verge cutting. So they were complaining last night about the verges not being cut. And one of the examples they gave, which I kind of hit home, was we've got a park and ride in Mere Oak that people use obviously to get to the hospital, go off to all sorts of places. And there's a chap who goes off to somewhere, comes back, gets off at the park and ride, and then walks in a high vis along a very busy road to get home in Grosley Green. And I spoke to Highways about it, to Countryside, sorry, and they said that's not a great idea. And they explained why, in reality, the council verge cutting isn't really the answer. So I suppose that's a long way of saying on the villages, the problem is places like Wokefield, Grosley Green, people need to walk in the road, and somehow we need to come up with a way of making that possible without them ending up in getting back on the Mere Oak Park and ride to take themselves back to the hospital, sort of thing, if that comes across. But I certainly broadly support the report, obviously, but I just think the rural active travel is kind of a special case that we probably need to think about quite carefully and see how we can. It doesn't need a lot of money really to cut back beyond verges so people can walk. They don't need a bus, they just want to be able to walk without getting run over. I think that's the point that they were ramming home to me last night. But thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carter. Just to add my own comment to that, as a member of the Local Access Forum, it's something we have been going on for a long time, is to make sure that links between off-road footpaths along roads, where possible, we do cut the verge and keep it level so that people can walk off the road. But moving on to the next speaker I have is Councillor Colston.
Thank you, Chair. As Chair of the Cycle Forum, I'm very pleased to see such an emphasis on active travel in this report. The Cycle Forum has been going for 20 years, and over that time, many sections of cycleway have been built across the area, which is, when you see the whole thing, it's a big progress. The key now, and I'm very pleased to see that in the report, is that we join the bits together that we have already built. And there are a couple of key points in there, but I'm very pleased to see the ambition is in the report. So thank you very much.
Councillor Cottingham. I thought I saw your hand up. No? Councillor Culver then.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Gawley, for your presentation of your report this evening. I agree with the comments that Councillor Colston has made about the cycle paths. We've got a great cycle path in Hampstead Norreys. It'd be great to see that extended at either end, and agree with what Councillor Marsh said about the speed limits. There's just a few quick points that I'll make. You might be aware, I've shared this information with Councillor Gawley before about the weight limit restriction that we'd like to see in West Ilsley. Often when there are accidents on the A34, people use that as an unofficial diversion. It's not an official diversion, but the reality is sat-navs still send people off in that direction. And we had an incident in February where there were lorries coming through the centre of the village, and there were residents out there in the dark without high-vis desperately trying to help lorries to negotiate the junction. So if we could revisit that, I'd be really grateful. More evening buses in the rural areas would be wonderful. I know the on-demand transport that you've done up to the villages around the Cheveley area. If maybe we could think about something similar around the Ilsleys, that would be great. If I could get a bus home after these meetings, then I would travel into town by bus. And obviously people would like to go out in the evenings for a meal, etc., go to the cinema. If you've got a bus home, you can have a drink and you can get the bus home. If we do end up merging with the councils just to the north of us, if we could revisit the X34 system, that would be really good. I know that we pay Oxfordshire County Council towards that service. It would be great if it could intersect with Route 6, which goes through the Ilsleys, Compton and Hampstead Norreys, because then all the people who live there can use the Route 6 to get to the X34 in East Ilsley and go up to Chiltern, Harwell, Didcot, etc. So if we do merge, I think that would be really good if we could address that at long last. And then just finally on the slip roads, I just want to thank my MP, Olivia Bailey, for taking up the issue around the slip roads on the A34, which are incredibly dangerous. And I do know that Richard Benyon and Laura Farris also tried to tackle this. It is a national highways issue, but if there's anything we can do to work with national highways to try and facilitate that, it would be great, because there are actually people in our villages, as Olivia has highlighted, who will not use those slip roads around Beedon and East Ilsley because they are so dangerous. And only this evening, when I got onto the A34, there were people behind me in souped up cars, which I can't afford, overtaking me, If I'd pulled out, they would have gone straight into the back of me. Every single day, I am amazed that no one is killed on those junctions. So please, if we can work with Olivia on that, I'd be very, very grateful. Thank you.
Councillor Shakespeare.
Can I just reinforce Councillor Culver's remarks about the dial-a-ride service in the rural areas, and say how grateful I am to Councillor Gawley and to all the other councillors on the tag, and to the officers for the announcement of the extension of the Community Connect service to Pangbourne. It's going to be a massive benefit to our village, and it's something that particularly elderly Pangbournistas have been campaigning for some time. So it's fantastic. I look forward to working with him. Every other members of the exec will know how keen I am on buses, so I'm really very keen to get this underway. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I wasn't intending to speak, but in view of one or two comments that were made earlier, I feel I ought to. But firstly, I will be voting for this report. I think, I agree with much that's in there. I represent a ward that's had has had two safer school schemes, one at Calcutta, which Councillor Sumner mentioned earlier, and also one that's been recently introduced on a trial basis at Springfield School. Those have worked. The Calcutta one, I think, has worked extremely well. The Springfield one, I think the jury's sort of still out on that, and I'm certainly getting some adverse feedback from local residents and some local businesses as well that I think we need to address. But I think it is an important scheme, and I think we may even have a third one coming up in my ward before long. I think one thing in particular we need to look at is alternative arrangements for parking. Where these schemes were introduced, and I think that's something that's been a little lacking with the Springfield School scheme. One other general comment, and perhaps I find as someone that travels regularly between Reading and Newbury, I get totally baffled by the closures that I experience either on the M4, the A4, and the communications of them. I've many times got to the M4 junction after a meeting here at Newbury only to find that it's closed, and I've despite the fact that I think so, if I don't know if it's in this plan at all, but I think some way of improving the way that these closures are communicated, and they seem to be endless, really, particularly around the A4 M4 junction, for example, in my well, actually just in my ward, between my ward and Holybrook. I'd just like to make a comment on regarding the mistake in referring to the City of Reading. And whilst I agree with much that Councillor Sumner said earlier, I lived 40 years of my life in Reading Borough, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I didn't move out of Reading Borough because I was fed up with it. I've also enjoyed living in West Berkshire. It's still in Tireless. I still feel very much like a Reading resident. And I think there's a lot to be said for both councils, to be quite honest. I don't have a problem with the way Reading's run. I don't have huge problems with the way that West Berkshire's run. And I hope we can work together in that respect. Could I just reference to I know the Mayor of Reading very well. The Mayor of Reading did live in, he lived in Holybrook Ward for quite some time and decided to move to Reading some years ago. And I'm sure and I know he enjoys his time in Reading now. So I don't entirely agree with the comments that were made earlier. That's all. I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Taylor, you've just changed the gender of the Mayor of Reading, who is a lady at the moment. You've got to keep up, So I've got Councillor Barnett next.
Thank you, Chairman. The concern that I have is basically the 339. The 339, unfortunately, is now being used 24 hours a day, specifically for HGVs that decide they can go off the M4 and join the M3 and obviously down to the M2 or M26. This is something which is for a long period of time been discouraged by the HGV Association, but it still remains, and it is actually 24 hours a day, because I've been travelling down the 339 regularly at night, and I bump into a considerable number of vehicles. And where do they go? They come through the town, they're expected to actually go to Tot Hill on the 4640, but they don't. They come through the town and obviously go on up to the 339 to the motorway at Cheveley, or vice versa. So I don't know whether there's anything we can try and encourage them to actually not use this route, but I can assure you it doesn't help the traffic in the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Councillor Abbs.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of things, really. Councillor Gawley, could you please make your data available? You made some statements about home working and this, that, and the other. I'm looking at Statista, which is generally a well-renowned place for getting your statistics, and basically there hasn't been any change in the number of people working specifically from home or travelling to work specifically. There's been an increase in hybrid travel, but we've been pretty stable since 2022 in terms of the numbers. So the statement about everybody young is now working from home, it wasn't quite clear. So all I would like is the numbers, please, that you base the statement on, and then I might have a supplementary question at some point in the future. The other point was about e-scooters, and I think all of us are fairly sure we'd like to see a trial, but all of us have also seen e-scooters at their worst. And generally the worst I've experienced is when they're just abandoned here, there and everywhere. So again, it's the detail around the scheme and how we're going to ensure that we don't just end up with messy pavement, trip hazards, and what we see in pretty much around wherever the trial happens. That's where the problem occurs, really. People don't return them. So I'm definitely in support of this. There's just some detail I'd like, please, to follow up from it. Thank you.
And Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I broadly supported this plan when I first saw it about a week ago, and I think I broadly support it now. When I saw it a week ago, I didn't make any public statements saying that I wouldn't vote against it. If I had done, then I'd feel a bit embarrassed about voting against it tonight. Unlike the party opposite, of course, who made a public statement in December 2022 that they would not vote against the local plan review, and then a week later voted against it. Yeah. And by delaying that local plan review by 7 months, they've given residents thousands more houses to deal with. Good job that they've got a responsible opposition that doesn't play party political games with important issues like that. I notice here that there's a consultation section in this report, and you actually included the results of the consultation in there, and for that I commend you. But the residents who responded to this consultation aren't being treated with the contempt that residents who responded to the consultation on the extension of pedestrianisation and the consultation on the degrading of the black bin service have been treated. Both of those consultations delivered a clear majority against the proposals of the administration, and yet the administration ignored them and decided to say, no, we know best. Yes, we consulted you, we've ticked that box, but we're going to ignore what you said. You shouldn't treat residents with contempt. You're very much in danger of losing the trust of residents and the moral authority that comes from an election victory. We heard tonight that the administration refuses to tell residents, even tell them what the criteria are for a larger green bin. That is disgraceful, it is infantilising them, and it needs to stop immediately. Councillor Barnett, I have concerns about the A339 as well, particularly after 5 p.m, when Northbrook Street is no longer available, and the knock-on effect of traffic. Wouldn't you say, Councillor Pemberton, that that's a valid point for me to raise? You don't think it's a valid point. You seem to be treating me with contempt as well. I think residents who are concerned about the traffic, I'm glad you're shaking your head that people can see. I think residents that are concerned about the impact on traffic on the A339 have a valid concern, and that concern needs to be treated with respect. I do suspect that Councillor Taylor is in a small minority of residents out there in the east of West Berkshire who treat the prospect of being taken over and annexed by Reading Borough Council with a degree of insouciance. I think the vast majority would agree with Councillor Sumner, but I commend him for putting his side of the story as well he did. Thank you very much, Chairman. That's my contribution on the matter.
Thank you, Councillor McKinnon. Can I just, and this is not a party political point, whichever administration is in charge of this council or any council, when we consult, we're gathering evidence. It's not a binding decision as to whether we actually go with the majority or not. It's part of the evidence base. It's referenda that are binding upon the authority that proposes a referendum. That's just the facts. And I think the public need to have that made clear to them. So that's what I'm doing. I now call on Councillor Foote to summate the motion. Oh, sorry, did you have your hand up, Councillor Brooks? Thank you. Yes, please.
I'm grateful to you. And it is interesting, and I commend the Leader of the Opposition for weaving in a whole bunch of statements and points of view, and particularly on consultation and the ignoring of the consultation response. I looked up the green bin charge that was introduced by his administration several years ago, about 2018, 2019. 654 people said they didn't want it, 8 did.
Oh, interesting.
Funny that, we got it. That was a consultation.
So it's not.
Oh. He's blaming you, Councillor Alston, he's blaming you. Oh, who was there back then? Oh, so you wash your hands of your predecessors, do you? Oh, right, okay. I'll keep looking at your response to consultations. That's a particularly egregious one. So if you're going to bring that into it, beware. I've got examples too. Thank you.
Councillor Foote, now please summate the motion.
Thank you very much, Chair. Well, I'm very pleased to second this motion that we vote in favour of the new local transport plan that covers the years 2025 through to 2040. That is a very long time scale, and I think we've had a very constructive and informative debate on this topic tonight. And on the note of the length of this, it was made very clear that the plan is going to be refreshed every 5 years. And also, it was interesting to hear about, I know, I think it is no longer with us, but the Transport Advisory Group. These bodies, these groups are very important because we can work cross-party. And we've heard tonight that there are a lot of really good points that people make from the various areas within the district, which are all valid. But we've touched on consultations. And at the beginning of the document, the 3 major points that came up in the public consultation for this document were access to public transport, which Councillor Culver and others have clearly demonstrated on my side as well, the need for, and that is important. Pedestrian facilities, that is very important as well, and clean air. And it's important that this council has a policy of health in all policies. And we have a duty to our residents to try and keep them healthy so that they can live a long, productive life with a good quality of life. And having clean air, having access to walking, and I hear the comments about walking along A roads, busy A roads as well. These are all things we can feed into this plan. We've mentioned e-scooters. Of course, if a council brings in their own e-scooters, these scooters are at least branded, so it identifies them clearly from the more, shall we say, reckless or even illegal scooters that might be out there. And I echo the point that my colleague, Councillor Gawley, made. We desperately need good government legislation on this topic to manage the use of e-scooters. So in summary, Chair, it does give me great pleasure to second this motion. I think we've, as I say, had a very constructive meeting. I like the mention of transforming mobility that Councillor Marsh mentioned. This is all very constructive, and I think it's an excellent document, and I'm delighted to support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Foote. Councillor Gawley, is there anything you wish to say in making your concluding remarks?
Yes. I've got quite a long list, but I think a very good debate and some really useful points. And there's so many headlines to start with, I'm not sure. So I think let's go with the Reading one. I feel like this has been a bit of a victim of timing, if I'm honest, you know, and a bit of clarity, I guess, around that inference there. It's very much a bit similar to, I've completely forgot the name of the place. Washwater in Hampshire, overlooking, you know, looking towards Newbury, Walton Hill. That's the other one I was trying to think of. Those areas that are really close to those district boundaries. That how do they connect into those facilities? And I'm happy to take it away because I know I've had it raised by other members around that phraseology to amend that slightly. I don't believe it changes any of the substance because I think it is important how we look at connecting into our neighbouring districts, but I'm happy to edit the phraseology there as a minor amendment. In terms of 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, absolutely agree. Our manifesto commitment was where you know, where local residents wanted them, where communities wanted them. That's the really critical part to that, is where does that community want them? And like I said, we've got a plan now to the end of this year and beyond around how we will look to roll those out, and are very much engaging with ward members, parish councils, and obviously the local residents in doing so. Again, with regards to e-scooters, I think we all recognise the challenges of some of the minority that misuse the privately owned ones. And I reiterate my point that this would be a scheme that is properly managed and legislated if you know, when we start to progress that. And I also think it'd be a really good policy to take through the policy development group when we get to that point to help flesh that out and start to bottom out any concerns. What else have we got here? Mobility for disabled residents. I agree, completely, really important. And I think for me, that links into that Vision Zero in terms of road safety, you know, in terms of access for all. And I think a lot of these issues can be managed through the kind of sub plans, such as the network management plan, and absolutely keen to support that and make sure that's brought in mind when we look at those next tier plans. In terms of the speed limits, absolutely. We've been picking up a massive backlog, some of them dating back to 2021, which we've had to pick up and deal with, and we still are. But we absolutely appreciate they aren't slick, and that's why we've engaged support to help this alongside the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits to make sure we can turn them round. It's also a good opportunity at this point to highlight the fact we've got a peer review that members would have been invited to, and also members of the public will be invited to look at how we operate across our highways and transport areas, so we can look at improving, because it is such a critical part of what the council do. With regards to verges and rural verges, absolutely agree. There are challenges. What I would always ask is report a problem, please. Don't let it get to a point where there's an accident. There are some excellent examples out there already where we have linked in rural areas such as Stockcross into urban areas. So it is possible, but it's about what's the requirement, what's the support out there for it, and how do we do it. But in terms of grass, absolutely, please do report it. It's really good to hear that the government have extended the bus service improvement plan, and I would always say, please can we have some more, because it is critical. And I think to allay kind of Councillor Culver's fears, or not fears, but suggestions, we are looking at evening bus services as part of that. Now we know we've got funding for another year. The X34 is also part of that, and looking at extending that route and perhaps operating days and linking that into the Armsleys. So watch this space. They are top topics. In terms of the A339 and the traffic, absolutely, that is in the plan to look at how we encourage the HGVs to use the correct route around Newbury. There's a bypass, it's called the A34. I use it to go around Newbury to get to work, and I thoroughly recommend it as a way around Newbury. Touching on the A339 and the traffic levels, the data doesn't show the increase in traffic. Just to say, we are obviously closely monitoring that, but that is not something we've seen a significant increase in. And touching on the pedestrianisation, I guess that is in the plan. So thank you for that. And also thank you for supporting the master plan when you wrote the forward. There is a consultation, as you're aware, that's going on for a longer term, 6 months, that residents are actively filling in to help us build out what that looks like, and also gaining their lived experiences. So we are consulting in that statutory performance, not to the extent that this one does. And in summary, again, I think thank you for the good debate this evening, some great points. I hope I've been able to answer some of the queries that you've raised, but as always, you know where I am. Please reach out if you've got anything else. And thank you again to officers and Alec for leading on this one and developing a really good, robust local transport plan that covers east to west and north to south across our fantastic West Berkshire district, not Reading. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gourley. Could I now please ask the Deputy Monitoring Officer to conduct the vote by a show of hands?
Thank you, Chairman. Can I have a show of hands of all those in favour? I can confirm that's been carried unanimously.
Thank you very much, members. That was a good debate. Thank you. Monitoring Officers Annual Report 2024-2025. Conduct and Ethics is the next item, number 11. May I invite Councillor Jeff Brooks to formally move the recommendation contained within the report?
I move the recommendation to note the content of the report, Chair.
Ask for a seconder, please.
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Thanks to Councillor Gaines. Do you intend to reserve your right?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks, can you please introduce the report then?
There's quite a lot of things keep me awake, wake me up early, bear heavy on my brow and my shoulders. The conduct of members at West Berkshire Council doesn't. Because we are respectful and we get on pretty darn well across the chain. This report tells us we do. I'm grateful to all members for that. It's too easy to start throwing complaints across when actually sitting down, talking things through, sometimes apologising because you got something wrong, not being too big to apologise. This helps oil the wheels. It means that if you look at the table in here, we are down to 6 complaints, and I think 3 or 4 of them are not taken any further. That's a terrific performance. I wonder if we can keep it up to the next election, because it can get a bit more spicy in the run-up to an election, whatever that election is for, whether it's Ridgeway or whether it is West Berkshire continuing. So I thank everybody for this, because although we will have our disagreements and we do them perhaps in a jocular, maybe sardonic way. Now and again, we get a little bit hot under the collar, but generally, the word that I think is at the forefront of our relationships here is respect. Now, I can say that too about the parish council. To be fair, there's only 6 on the parish council complaints, a lot more councillors in the parishes. So generally across this district, I think we're clever, insightful, but nice. And this report tells us we are. So I don't have a lot to add. I think we'd know pretty quickly if those relationships started getting more tricky and difficult, because we'd hear it, we'd see it, emails would reflect it. But I'm grateful to the way we behave or hold ourselves, treat each other, and long may it last. Naturally, if any members have any other views that I might need to pick up in my summation, I'll happily do so. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. I now open yes, Councillor Culver.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to echo Councillor Brooks's sentiments and particularly the point about making apologies. I think where we have a complaint that's upheld and someone is asked to make an apology, especially if it goes to the next stage and we incur expense using taxpayers' money for an external arbiter to look at that next stage complaint, if they then conclude that someone should apologise, I think that those people should respect us and respect this chamber and the complainant and actually apologise. Thank you.
Thank you for that point, Councillor Culver. Any other speakers in the debate? Thank you, Councillor McKinnon, please do.
Thank you, Chairman. Just very briefly, thank the leader for his remarks and I wholeheartedly endorse them. Thank you very much.
Councillor Sumner.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't actually going to speak on this, but it occurs to me from listening to what's been said so far. One of the things that I do see regularly, and I think we can never make assumptions that the message gets through, is for members on the planning committees, it's about gifts, hospitalities, or as it's affectionately put on social media, backhanders. Can we state categorically, I've never known anybody receive so much as a cup of tea on a planning committee. And I'm on a roll tonight. There's two of those. And I think we should make it really, really clear to members of the public out there. There is no backhanding. There is no gifts. There is no hospitality. Every now and again, there's a nice word. It's not guaranteed, but let's stress that point. Other than that, totally agree with this report and thank you for putting it forward.
Thank you for that point, Councillor Sumner. As somebody who's been on planning a long time, I know exactly what you mean about those remarks. And furthermore, I'd like to point out that we are supposed to have an officer present with us whenever we meet either party in these matters on planning. Any more speakers? Yes, I think no more hands. Right, then I call on Councillor Gaines to say anything she wishes to as well.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think I've got anything to add, actually.
Right, thank you very much. We have the mover wishing to, if he wishes to close the debate.
Certainly do. A couple of comments there. Yeah, look, if a complaint or somebody is put out can be resolved by talking to each other, jaw, not war, as Churchill said, not only does it potentially fix it, it saves money. Think about the cost, and we're talking thousands to investigate something with a solicitor and external people. So an apology, sorry isn't the hardest word. Sorry doesn't even seem to be the hardest word. Now, of course, don't just say sorry if you don't mean it, but it's behoving on us to say, I got that wrong. And yeah, every day's a school day. I learned something. We're all mortals, not saints. And if we stray, we should perhaps occasionally, in the right circumstances, apologize. Now, backhanders. 33 years. I've been a councillor, never seen the smidgen. I had one person who, as a developer, invited me out for a pint. I was scared to drink the pint. I don't know about anything else, And I did meet him before I was more wise on his own. You learn as you go along. But I'm going to come to David Marsh, Councillor Marsh on this, who continually bangs the drum about us not doing enough on his favourite media, social media. And yet, one of the reasons why I don't is because there is a group of people who you cannot change their view. And they use social media as a platform to say the most egregious, heinous things about councillors, as if we are all venal individuals taking taxpayers' money. And we all know in this chamber, nothing could be further from the truth. So that is why, Councillor Marsh, I am not drawn into social media. And you obviously are and think we should be on it every day, ploughing our furrow. Well, I'm telling you, there are a whole bunch who are on there all the time. It won't make a blind bit of flipping difference. However, thank you for working, all of us working, to get such a very good outcome on this report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Well, we are just asked to note this report. There's no vote required, and it will be circulated to our parish and town councils across the district. And I hope they enjoy reading it because it is a good read. Thank you, members. Item 12 now is the Health and Wellbeing Board Annual Report 2024-2025, which Councillor Codling is going to move.
Yes, I so propose. Thank you.
And the seconder, please, Councillor Clark. Thank you. Are you reserving your right?
I certainly am.
Thank you. Would you like to introduce the report now, Councillor Codling?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm very pleased to bring forward this report, our second annual report of the Health and Wellbeing Board. It covers the progress we've made in the last year on our priorities, which are to reduce the differences in health between different groups of people, to support individuals at high risk of bad health outcomes and to live healthy lives, to help families and children in early years, promote good mental health and wellbeing for all children, and promote good mental health and wellbeing for all adults. You can see the report before you that gives that detail. The report covers also an item that I am particularly pleased with, the success of the Community Wellness Outreach Service. I'd like to mention Kate Toon because she's put an awful lot of work into this, and this is going out to our rural areas and identifying those people that need assistance in visiting a doctor or getting the information about blood pressure and all sorts of other minor or apparently minor conditions that if they go to their doctor they could get treatment with and their health would be prolonged in a better situation. I'd like to also thank the working parties that feed into this meeting, the board. They put in a lot of work. What I would say is over the last year, we've had a review with the LGA about the focus of the board. And we had a working group with all our partners in the room. So Bob ICB, the police, and lots of other groups. And we're actually going to try and change direction. And that will be decided finally at our next meeting in the autumn. And the idea is that instead of just being a group that notes reports from our working groups, we will actually try and move the dial on people's health and how we help them. And we're going to be having less formal meetings, and we'll have groups where we sit down and actually decide how we can make a real difference as a council working with public health. That is going to be difficult over the next years with the cuts in funding to ICB and NHS generally and public health in our district, but we will be working very hard to bring that forward. So I'm happy to propose this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Codling. I now open the debate to the floor. Anybody wishing to speak? No? Well, in that case, we can move straight to the second of the motion, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. I've read this report, this excellent report, which shows the Health and Wellbeing Board's scrutiny to ensure the health of the local population is assessed and services are effectively provided. There are so many moving bits that we need this kind of organisation to oversee it. The NHS has many different parts. The council has many different parts. Care organisations each have their own agenda. The Health and Wellbeing Board provides an opportunity to link together what often seem disparate issues and get a better view of the efficacy of the work we're doing. So, keep it brief. The future of the board, as Heather said, is something we're considering at the moment. We want to make it even more efficient, even more dynamic than it is at the moment. But there's no reason not to celebrate the work that has been done by the board over the past year. So I would like to second this and recommend everyone reads it.
Councillor Codling, have you got anything you want to add?
Nothing to add, Chairman. Thank you.
In which case, we're again not voting. This is just for our information, members, so we can move on to the next item.
which is the annual scrutiny report. I would like to invite Councillor Culver to formally move recommendation in that report.
I'd like to formally move, please, Chairman.
And who will be seconding that? Councillor Reid, thank you. Do you wish to reserve your right?
I wish to reserve the right to speak.
Right. Culver, would you please introduce the report?
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. So this is the second year now that we've done an annual report into scrutiny, and it's based on the work of the Scrutiny Commission and Health Scrutiny Committee, which have obviously changed recently with the restructure. At Scrutiny Commission, we spend a considerable amount of time scrutinising the council's finances, and this will obviously continue to be a priority going forwards. We perform our role as the council's Crime and Disorder Committee, welcoming senior police figures to come to the meeting each year to talk to us, and that will be happening again soon. We've looked at children's services, including the crucial service but the expensive service of special educational needs, high needs block. We've looked at adult social care and also many place-focused topics. Councillor Vickers isn't here with us tonight. She chairs the Health and Scrutiny Committee. So I just take this opportunity to pass on our thanks to her for the important work that she's done to lead her committee. They've looked at healthcare on new developments, adult and children's mental health, diabetes care and dentistry, amongst many other topics over the last year. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank people. So members of the committees, the scrutiny committees, and also the task and finish groups who have spent so much time diligently drilling into those issues. I also want to thank members of the executive and senior officers who've come along to present to us over the last year as well. We had a very good session recently where Councillor Cottingham came along and gave very honest and transparent presentation and answering our questions about the finances. I've had very robust but constructive conversations with the council leader. Councillor Gaines and I have talked about housing recently. Councillor Gawley and I have talked about transport and about waste. I've spoken with Councillor Codling in the last year about children's services and so on and so forth. So I thank all of you for your constructive participation in that. I also want to take the opportunity to thank the external guests as well. So I mentioned the police. We also have people who come along from the world of healthcare, and also we've had Thames Water and the Environment Agency come along and speak to us as well. And that's been very, very valuable. I also want to thank members of the public who've come to the meetings. So we had a really good meeting with Thames Water and the Environment Agency last autumn, and we had about 7 flood wardens who came along to that. And that was really invaluable to hear those members of the public talking about their concerns and getting them around a table with the various agencies to try and understand who does what. So it's not always possible at scrutiny that we can solve all of those problems, but we can get people around a table so that we understand each other a lot better. I also want to thank the clerks of the committees, so Gordon Oliver and also Vicky Phoenix, and also to Stephen Chard, who's going to be a clerk for scrutiny from now onwards. Scrutiny is independent of the executive. We hold the executive to account and we act as a critical friend. Sometimes being a critical friend means that you don't necessarily like what we have to say, but that's part of the process. And we can obviously have that ongoing robust discussion. And obviously whether the executive accept our recommendations is entirely up to them. That's how it works. But our role is an important and crucial check and balance on the administration. And I think in an executive system where sometimes backbenchers feel that they don't really have much of a role and they don't get much traction over things, being a member of a scrutiny committee means that they get that. They get the opportunity to hold people to account and to really drill into issues and you know, understand those things a lot more. And we do genuinely work independently. We have cross-party discussions at scrutiny and also at task and finish groups. And we've worked very, very well together, regardless of our party politics. I'm sometimes asked what difference scrutiny makes. Obviously, it's up to the executive and indeed the government to make legislation and decide how things are done. And that doesn't lie with us. But I think what we've got is a kind of soft power. We are there to uphold the principles of democracy and good governance, to give evidence-based recommendations, invite people in for dialogue and amplify the voice of residents. So we will always do our best to identify meaningful recommendations that the executive can take on board, but our role goes very much above and beyond that. And I think going forwards, our role is going to be absolutely critical, especially when we face the financial challenges that we do, special needs, high needs block, etc., and also the potential merger with other councils, which we will be looking at later on in the autumn. So, yeah, lots of work to do. We look forward to working with everyone, and it's been a great honour to serve on that committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Culver. I would echo that applause to Councillor Culver's work on this, and remember that we didn't always have a member of an opposition party chairing, and I think that has made it much more worthwhile for backbenchers of all parties in participating in scrutiny to know that there is somebody genuinely independent of the ruling administration who chairs that committee, and I hope we never go back to marking our own homework. Any other speakers? No? Oh, yes, thank you. Councillor Cottingham.
Thank you, Chair. Certain amount of deja vu, what I'm going to repeat, which I said last year. I'd like to back the actual leadership of Carolyn Culver regarding scrutiny, someone who attends once a quarter. What I found is that the actual personality and tone of the committee is very I say challenging questions, constructive tension. The effectiveness of any board has to have that in place. There is that independent check and balance. Very much, I feel it is a critical friend. It is something which, bizarrely, perversely, I do enjoy coming along because I know I'll get questions which will test. And as I say, hopefully you find my answers truthful, honest, and what I believe to be, as I say, what I know at the time. So once again, thank you. I think it works really well.
Very much. And Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks to Councillor Culver for this report. And yeah, I think Councillor Culver did a very good job of chairing the Scrutiny Commission. I think she's dealt with it well. I would agree with what Councillor Cottingham said. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but just in response to what you said there, Chairman, about how good it is to have an opposition chairman of the committee. And I don't disagree with that. That does not mean that the administration doesn't get to mark its own homework. When we were in administration, the chairman of the Scrutiny Commission was obviously a backbencher. The Liberal Democrats have an absolute majority on that Scrutiny Commission. They do. What's that, Councillor McCann? I think you've misunderstood the spirit of the point that I'm making. The administration, you're right, we lost and you won. So you've got a majority on the committee. That's completely against the point which the chairman was making and Councillor Culver was making about how good it is that the Scrutiny Commission doesn't mark the administration's homework. Let's not get carried away with this. Councillor Culver does a good job and she's independent. All of the members of the Scrutiny Commission that I was on and now the now reorganised Scrutiny Commission do a good job as well. But let's face it, if Liberal Democrat members want that Scrutiny Commission, those Scrutiny Commissions to make a certain decision and they get political about it, which I don't think they have actually, then they can do. So an independent chair is one thing. How about having an opposition majority on the committee? Maybe that's a little step that the administration would like to make.
That's something that Parliament hasn't yet done, and I doubt it ever will. That is democracy as we have it. Thank you, Councillor McKinnon. Any other comments from the floor? In which case, I ask Councillor Clark if you wish to say anything. The seconder. Sorry, you. Sorry, Councillor Reid. We've done the Councillor Clark, haven't we?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the really excellent report, Councillor Culver. It's difficult to add any more to the report on there, but so I'll just echo some of the points that I can see. So the key roles for Scrutiny Committee that Councillor Culver went through: holding the executive and other decision makers to account, providing constructive critical friend challenge, and to drive improvements in public services. I think scrutiny under that chairmanship has delivered those things. I think that we have stood back from politics and really looked at some really tough topics on there, from finances. And I don't think Councillor Cottingham think many of the questions from either side have been particularly friendly. transport, highways, care, children's services, all tough topics. Thames Water, and we've all got some pretty bad horror stories that we've been let down by Thames Water. And up until recently, the Toothless Environment Agency, which fortunately is now seeming to find some teeth and holding Thames Water itself to account financially as well. And it's really great to hear from the officers and portfolio holders the chance to add some real colour to their reports. Reports, when you read them and you look them on the websites, can be, okay, they're very factual and they have to be put into a certain area. But if you ask an officer a question, they absolutely come to life. I've seen Mr. Holmes come up with some of the questions that I raise. I know very little about finances, but I do know about risk, resilience, and how to be a project manager. And he puts that answer in something that I can understand, that residents can understand. So I'm really grateful. Well, actually, I'm really proud to be on the scrutiny committee, but I'm also really grateful for the open and honest answers that portfolio holders and officers have given to some really tough topics during tough times and finances that are just so challenging. I myself am looking forward to playing my part on the project management and task and finish and returning findings to Councillor Culver as chair, who performs such an outstanding role, and will continue to do so on the Resource and Place Scrutiny Committee. All I can say is that, I commend this report, and I hope that people have found this very interesting and would recommend, if there is a space coming on any scrutiny committee, really put your name forward. It's great fun. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Reid. Once again, we've got the mover to say any closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you to Councillor Reid for seconding this and for other colleagues' comments. Just in response, I'd just like to thank Councillor Vickers again, because I am conscious she's not here tonight. So this isn't only about the Scrutiny Commission, it is about the Health Scrutiny Committee. And I'm sure she's going to do a fantastic job of chairing that going forwards, now that it also includes adult social care. I'm sure that Councillor Bowick will do a great job of children's services, having been a former portfolio holder, so he's very knowledgeable on that. So I think the fact we've got someone from each party chairing the committees now is very positive. Rather unhelpfully, I've lost my screen now, never mind. So we've got a number of topics that are coming up in the autumn. We're going to be looking at transformation and at libraries at the next meeting. We're going to have hopefully a special meeting about local government reorganisation. I'm already giving some thought to how we can liaise with the Scrutiny Commission chairman of the other authorities so that we can get our house in order. So Centre for Governance and Scrutiny gives some very useful advice for councils that are looking at mergers about how you should work with the other councils as well and find out about what they're up to. So we will be doing that. I've mentioned before about the restructure. We've got the policy development group now, and we had a very useful meeting recently where we talked about viable villages and rural areas. The only caution that I would say is now that we've just got the one policy development group and not the 3 advisory groups, that's going to mean a lot of pressure on our time. And people have mentioned this evening we can use the policy development group to look at various topics, but that is going to need to be managed quite carefully. And I think Councillor Vickers and Councillor Sumner will agree with me. When we looked at the local plan at PAG, we went through it in extraordinary detail. And if we're going to do that with the next local plan, how are we going to achieve that if we've just got one policy development group trying to look at everything? So that's something that I'll keep banging the drum about, because I think there's a lot of issues that we really need to dig into, and we need the time to do that. So I think I will leave it there, but thank you very much, members. Look forward to serving for the next year. Look forward to working with all of you. If you haven't got involved in a task and finish group yet, please do take that opportunity. It's been an honour to serve, and I've learned a lot from it. I've really enjoyed it, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Culver. And yes, I will pass your kind remarks about Councillor Martha Vickers back to her. And I'm sure if she was here, she'd want to echo your remarks about the support from officers, because Vicky Phoenix really does go above and beyond the call of duty on that. And I'm often in the house when they're having their long discussions about the next meeting. So again, have to vote on this and not required to vote. So it's just to note the report, which is an excellent report. I'm sure we all agree. So moving on to notices of motions, item 14. I don't believe we have any notice of motions at the moment. So we can move on to members' questions, item 15. We can have the question A put up on the board. I think members know what score is here. So question A from Councillor Barnett is for Councillor Foote to respond.
Thank you very much, Phil, for your question. It is true that reduced rainfall has affected grass growth in recent months. I can confirm that this has not yet resulted in any financial savings. Our grounds maintenance contract is structured around staff availability and readiness to deliver services as needed, regardless of the temporary fluctuations in weather or grass growth. As such, the resources required to maintain these public spaces remain allocated and costs have not changed, as this is a temporary situation. It's also worth noting that the grass cutting frequency was reduced from 7 to 5 cuts per year as part of last year's budget consultations. Thus, the temporary reduction in grass growth has helped the contractor to get on top of the new cutting requirements this year and to learn relevant lessons for how a more typical vegetation growth season can be effectively managed in the future. Do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you very much, Councillor Foote, for a comprehensive explanation of the position. Obviously, the position, it fluctuates from year to year, and you've made it quite clear what the position is this year against last year. No, I haven't got supplementary.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Councillor Foote. Next question is yours as well, Councillor Barnett, and it's for Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure all residents, all members, and whether in opposition or lead portfolio holders, backbenchers, any councillor up and down the country is the same issue. When their residents have issues where bad maintenance or inappropriate work reduces their ability to use the facilities, their homes, even businesses, we have the same sort of issue. I would recommend any member of any council to contact adult social care if they know specific needs for people, because when lifts break down, it can be absolutely frustrating, even just going to the shops to pick up your messages as I would normally know them. So if you have any examples where you would like us to speak to adult social care, we clearly, as an authority, try and enforce as much of the statutory disabled legislation as we can. Not all of it is under our responsibility, but we actively encourage residents of our community, when they know these things are happening, to contact the appropriate managers of the properties and chase them up for this. This is very disruptive to people's lives. And my mother, who had a stroke sort of like 7 or 8 years ago, just when the lifts went out, she was completely stuck in the flat. And nobody really knew what was going on. They thought she just didn't see her. And the neighbourly contact, that all reduces as well because of these unfortunate things. So if you know of any example that we as an authority can help, we will do our best, but we are not the decision makers in most of this. But if you've got any other supplementary questions.
Well, again, Councillor McCann, thank you very much for a very comprehensive explanation. Obviously, several of us members do know the different routes that we can endeavour to try and get a resolution, but it's very frustrating for what we've heard recently in several cases around the district. So, no, I haven't got a supplementary, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Now we have a question from Councillor McCrow to Councillor Gourley.
Yes, thank you very much for your question, Councillor McCrow. In 2024-25, we repaired 3,048 potholes, and this compares to 2,011 in 22-23 and 2,928 in 23-24, which is more potholes. Dangerous potholes are either filled in 2 hours or 24 hours, depending on the location and severity. In 24-25, we were made aware of 567 dangerous potholes, and 99% of these were repaired within the service levels in line with the council's. Do you have a supplementary?
Well, thank you very much for that. It sounds quite encouraging. Could you tell us, please, what the council is doing to try and avoid potholes developing in the first place?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. We all know that prevention is better than cure. So looking to the future, we are investing in our roads and our highways network, and we've enhanced our highways improvement plan. And that is, seen in the extra 4 million investment alone this year, which means we can double the amount of schemes that we do in terms of resurfacing, and that will mean that our roads will be more structurally sound, reducing the number of potholes that appear in the first place. And we've just recently finished the A4 east of Hungerford, which is excellent, and we finished that 2 days early as well. And our ambition is to be in the top 10% nationally for well-maintained roads within the next 2 to 3 years.
Thank you.
Well, members, that is the end of this evening's meeting. It's been a rather hot and humid evening, and whatever we do in local government reorganisation, I do hope we can find a council chamber that is a bit more conducive to a comfortable evening. So I now close the meeting.
Please be upstanding.